Hi, welcome to another edition of Legal Quilts. Today we're going to continue working on the Reindeer Bargello Snow Quilt. By now you should have all the blocks done, okay? And they look somewhat like this. And what we're going to do is we're going to sew the blocks together. You want to make sure when you're sewing them together that you continue the pattern. So you don't want one with the peak down, or maybe you do if you kind of want it to wander around. You can do that. But mostly I want to make sure the peak, which I call that's, where the darks come together at the top and then you start going back down. Make sure your peaks face the same way. We're going to have them facing up. So you're going to take 3. You've made 12 blocks. I was originally going to make 14. But this is what happens when you shop your stash. You might not have enough quilts. You might not have enough fabric to make what you want. So I narrowed it down to 12. And you'll see what I'm going to do to fix the extra space that I would have used. Well, you saw it on the front picture. We're going to use cornerstones. No problem. Still works. Okay? But to do each of the sides, you're going to divide your 12 blocks into groups of 3. And making sure you don't mess up your peak, which I was about to do. Lay them out right sides together and sew them into a line. Make sure I didn't mess this up. Yes. Now what I found, okay, just going to lay that out. Don't forget your leader and ender so you don't mess up your ends. And also so we have a second quilt when we're all done. Okay, start my leader and ender through. Just using the quarter machine allowance. Up this up against it and you're all good. Okay. Slide that through. And you just sew. Now what I found when I laid these out to see if I had the right size and everything against the panel was I had made my blocks, my total blocks for each side, 2 rows too large. But that's okay, and that's the beauty of a Bargello quilt, is for the first and third, for the first block, I removed the first row, and the second block and the third block, I removed the last row. And that got me the exact right size I needed. All right, cut off your little leader and ender. That's 1 and 2. Go. So my second block is going to be a little longer than my first and third block, but it still preserves that nice up-down motion, and it's okay. Oh, that's a little off. Okay. So then what we're going to, then you sew your third to your second one. Okay. And you're going to do this for 4 sets of 3. Okay? And oops, I messed up. Well, you're going to do this for 4 sets of 3. All right? Then, when you're all done, and I didn't do my leader and ender either. Then, when you're all done, we're going to sew it on. Your 4 sides, you're going to sew your top and your bottom on first. Okay? Now you've got your row all sewed up. Okay. You're going to take 2 of these for the top and bottom. And the reason we're doing top and bottom first is because we want to emphasize snow falling. So we want the length down we want the eye drawn to the long side. We want the long side to be vertical sides, not the horizontal, not this way, so that it'll still come up with the idea of snow falling. All right, so you're going to take your panel and make sure it's right side up, which these are the reindeer's antlers. Okay, and to make sure we get this on right, we're going to do it a lot like a border, which means we're going to fold the panel in half. Okay, fold your panel in half lengthwise. There we go, lengthwise, so that it's along the vertical. All right, that gets you the midpoint of your horizontal. And take your horizontal there. All right, your horizontal there. Take a pin that's going to stand out. So on this one, don't use a dark blue one. And just put a pin in, okay, for your middle point. And I grabbed a black one. Let me redo that one with a bright yellow one, okay? And we're going to put that in the middle point of your quilt, of the panel. Okay, we got the middle point of the panel. Then we're going to take your top. We're going to start with the top. And you're going to take this top piece of 3 and fold it in half. And we're going to come here, which is right, oh good, somehow, oh that worked out nicely. It's right there on a peak. Okay, let me just pin that. Again, bright yellow so I can find it. Stick that in there. Okay. All right, now you have to decide, do you want your peaks going away from the panel or towards the panel? I want them away, so you're going to lay it out, match up your pins, which are here somewhere. It's here somewhere. Where'd my pin go? It was right at a peak. Come on. Oh. Uh-oh. Lost a pin. Oh, it's at the other side. Okay. Whew. That's where my pin went. There we go. You're going to match up your pins so that they come together at the same spot, okay? Let me move this closer. See, I got my pin here and my pin here, all right? You're going to match those up as you lay it out. And then you're going to flip your top piece, your top row here, over, making sure your pins stay matched, that you've got right sides together. And we're going to clip your pieces together. Okay. Holding that, holding that, holding that so we don't lose it. Helps that that's on a peak. And you're going to clip that. Then you're going to work outwards from your clip. And why are we doing this? Just in case it's still a little long when you do it. Yeah, it's still just a tad bit long. You're not going to cut off too much off one end, causing it to look funky. You'll remove an equal part from both ends. So just clip it along every so often. Making sure your fabric's stretched out and all that stuff. Okay? Because, yeah, this is still a little long. That's okay. Yeah, it really helps if you measure your sides first, and then if you measure your panel first, and then you decide on your blocks. Kind of did this one a bit seat of the pants, and that's why it wound up like this. But it happens. Okay? So you've got it all clipped like that, okay? That's one side, one half. And you do the same thing on the other half. Just clip it along. Yep, we're going to have a little bit stuck out. All right. Clip it along. Clip it along. See, if this had been a pattern and I'd put this out already, my testers would be like, excuse me, you made the blocks too big. So there's a lot of things I could have done differently. Could have not doubled, done 2 for each one of each size. Could have started out with the 2.5 inch block, 2-inch blocks instead of 2.5. A lot of things I could have done, but I didn't. Said mostly seat of the pants. So once you've got it all pinned, then we're gonna sew it. First, we're gonna start, like it said, leaders and enders. Your leader and ender. There we go. I got them under here in just their little packages. So I'm just pulling one out, and I've got 3 of them, so I just randomly grab from each package as I go. Get that started in there. Now your fabric is gonna, mine it's hanging off the end. That's okay. You're still gonna have your smaller piece on top, even though it extends over the edge. Because as you can see, even with the weight of it, it's pulling off. Come on. There we go. So you don't want that pulling and then all of a sudden you're not sewing your smaller fabric because the heavier one pulled away. Or you're sewing larger than 1/4 inch on the smaller piece underneath. Now it's okay that this is longer. You just still slide it in there. Oops, come on. Slide it in there. Come on. Keep sweet talking it, it'll eventually work. Shouldn't have taken that clip off. Should have moved it back a little bit. There we go. Yes, you spend a lot of time just wrangling fabric. And just sew your row onto the top of the pan. Removing your clips as you go. The other reason I like using clips is because you're less likely to just sew right over them. And so you're not going to break a needle on them. They stand out a little more than pins. Well, there we go. Sewing, you know, stopping and starting is fine to make sure your fabric, this isn't a race. You just take your time. It's not a race. Toss the weight of your fabric up there, the panel up there, so that it's not pulling down and getting in your way and causing troubles with trying to get your ends lined up. Yes, I wish I knew how to do the speeded up stuff so that y'all didn't have to watch me just sit here and sew a straight line. But I don't. Remember, I do my own camera work, so that's why it looks this way. I've got the camera on reverse so that I can see and make sure it's recording properly and I see what y'all see. That's why I'm working on making sure y'all can see what I'm doing. Okay. And I know some of you said, well, I couldn't really see what you were doing. Okay, working on that. Okay. So you got it all sewed. And you do the same thing on the bottom. Do the same thing on the bottom. Figure out your middle. Figure out your middle. Pin it. Clip it. Sew it. Okay? Now, for this extra bit over here, just square it up. Lay your ruler down here and slice right up. And you'll have it the same on the other side so it won't look funky. So you're going to do it both at the top and the bottom. Even it out. Straighten it out. Curve it. That's the great thing about Bargello. If you're working from both sides, it'll still maintain without looking off. Now we've got the top and the bottom on. So the next step is to do the sides. And you're going to take your, and this is where we add the cornerstones. So you're going to take your long piece here, where you've done all the piece, you know, your 3 blocks that you've sewn together. And you're going to measure the width here. That's the short side, okay? You're going to cut a square that size. So this is 11 and a little bit. And add 1/2 inch. Measure it, add 1/2 inch, cut a square that size. This is 11 and a little bit, so I did an 11.5 inch square. And they look like this. These are my cornerstones. You actually saw them in the original picture, but it's just that, a square. And you're going to lay one on one end of your long piece. You know, lay it right sides together along that short edge there and just sew it. Okay, so. That's a good thing I collect snow fabric, because when I realized I needed cornerstones, I just went back to the stash closet and grabbed some out. Okay. And you're going to do the same thing at the other end. You're just going to sew the other square. You're going to sew, you need to cut 4 squares, 4 corners. You know, there's 4 corners on your quilt, so you're going to need to cut 1 for each of those and sew 2 on each of your remaining 2 rows of blocks. Alrighty? And then we'll move on to sewing them onto the panel. You got your 2 sides sewn with your cornerstone piece on the top and bottom of each one. So it looks like this as you pull it along. See, got 2 that look exactly like this. Now you're going to sew them on just like we did the top and the bottom, except this time we're working on the sides. And again, decide which way you want your peak to go. It doesn't really matter. You can do it the opposite. Oops, I already did. Messed this up. I sewed my peak here so it was at the bottom. And then the peak here is at the top. So we're going to have my peaks all over the place. This quilt is giving me more trouble. But anyway, doesn't really matter. Whichever way your peaks go, you can have them go different ways. It's okay. This time when you fold it up, fold your panel and the top and bottom up so that your center then is the center of that plus the blocks. That's why you needed the cornerstones, because you've added length to your quilt. Okay, find your middle piece. Find your middle piece. Get a contrasting pin and put it right in there. Okay, mark your pin. Okay, and then you're going to take your block. All right, you're going to take your rows of blocks and cornerstones and fold them up so that the cornerstones meet, all right, at your center. See, cornerstones, okay? And that should be your centerpiece. And again, it's right at a peak. Okay, get your contrasting pin, stick it on there. This one I'm going to have the peak going out, no, in, okay? Because that's where I stuck my pin. All right. Again, lay it out so you can see where the pin goes. Match up your pins. See? Pin here. Pin here. Match up your pins. Those are your centers. Flip your piece over. See where your pins are. Okay. Pull them back a little bit, but not completely out. Just so you can stick your, there you go. Just a little bit. And put your clip in there. All right, don't clip your pins. There you go. Clip it there. And then do the same thing that you did on the other sides, that you did on the top and the bottom. Pull your pins out because you don't want to sew over them and break your needle. Okay. And then just clip. Okay? Put your clips to the end. And the thing with having a little bit more on the cornerstones, shaving a little bit off will show even less when you square it up. And also, this is really important, if you do it this way from the middle, you're going to get an equal side so that you don't get one of your cornerstones, like your bottom cornerstones or your top cornerstones, looking smaller than the other two, which can throw off the view of your quilt a little bit. So you don't want to do that. Okay, and you just pin it along. It's a snowstorm, so it's a blizzard. That's why my peaks are going in all different directions. Let me move my pins over here so you can see what I'm doing better. You're just pinning it along. Pin, 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 pin. Yeah, it's going to be a little bit. And I think I went a little big on my cutting my pieces too. I'd rather have too big of a cornerstone that needed to be trimmed later than not big enough, because then it's really hard to add. You got to cut it out and redo it all again. Rip it out, recut, all that stuff. It's better to go a little big and square it up later. So you do it out from the center, both sides. Because if you start at one end, like I said, you're going to have way lot hanging over, and then you'll have funky looking cornerstones because some of them will be of a different size than the other ones, or you'll have all different size ones, and that'll be even worse. So you just want it to be, just want to be as careful. You just want to get it to the middle so that you can keep them as even as possible. Needs extra time. Again, this isn't a race. I could go back and rip that one out if I wanted to, because it's not a race. But I'm tired. I'm tired of this quilt. I've been working on it for a while. which is why we're getting it done now. Okay, and it's okay, because if I have them all going different ways, I just call it a blizzard. But take your time to pin. It's okay if it takes a little extra time to pin, because it'll make the sewing easier later. And like I said, it gets everything lined up better. Okay? That's totally worth it. Okay. And it doesn't matter. You can use a lot of clips. Don't use too few. Better to use too many than not enough. Okay? Once you got it clipped, we're going to move to the sewing. And then, once you've got it all clipped, just take one end here. Again, you're sticking out a little bit. I'm not going to do leaders and enders on this one, because what you're going to do is save yourself some hassle. Slide that piece that's hanging out the end there. Just slide it under there until you get to the beginning of of where you're going to start sewing, which would be on your top or bottom row. I can't remember if I'm on the top or bottom at this point. But the Bargello rows that you've already sewn on the top or the bottom, that's where you're going to start sewing. So just start there, slide it in, start there. Because if you've slid it in that far, the point of leaders and enders is to keep your fabric from catching on the dogs and not going through smoothly and getting all tangled up. Well, if you've slid your fabric through there already, even if you're not sewing, it's not going to catch when you do start sewing because you've already smoothed everything out. And you just sew. Okay. And keep your fabric, try to keep the weight of your fabric. You want the weight of your fabric up here or off to the side here, but not so much that it pulls. Kind of want to definitely don't want it down below your machine, because then that'll just pull everything. It'll screw up your 1/4 inch seam allowance. You'll get puckers in your fabric as you try to fight it back. All kinds of things. You really want to keep your weight distributed. That's where this table comes in handy, because mostly your working surface, then the weight is distributed, and there's enough of it that it does not. It doesn't pull your fabric and cause a problem. Okay. These take longer, they're the long side. We're almost there. All right. That's why you see me straightening it all the time, is because I don't want it to pucker. I don't want it to pull. Again, take your time. Make sure it's straight and smooth. It's worth it than not having, it's worth it to take the time to do it while you're sewing than have to rip it out and go back. Because there's nothing more annoying than having to rip it out and go back. I don't know, have you named your seam ripper? I have not named my ripper, just because I don't like my ripper. And it doesn't deserve a name. Some people name theirs. I don't. So that's it. Do the same thing for the other side. So your cornerstone to your piece, and then measure it out from the center, find your center, and then sew your piece on. Now you can see this is hanging over. That's okay, we're just going to trim it. Just take your ruler, square it up. But this is what the intersection looks like of your, there we go. I really want to show that piece, okay? You can see the intersection of your cornerstone and your Bargello blocks. I think that came out really nice. I think this is going to be a nice quilt despite all the frustrations. So that's it for this time. Next time we're going to be working on next episode, we'll be working on something else on work in progress. I'm still figuring it out, but we'll have something. And then the next month when we return to this, I know I did one on borders already, but I'm going to do another one because the borders on this one are, going to be larger than I usually use. I just want to talk about it again. So you'll have a couple of them that show borders and you can see the quilt all the way through. So that's it. Like I said, I will see you next time. If you want to support my work, you can buy me a cup of tea over at Ko-fi.com. That goes towards buying fabric, having time to do this, saving up for equipment, so I'm not doing this on my phone, which apparently y'all don't like, that sort of thing. The other thing, or you can buy quilted items on my website. Those links will be in the show notes. Remember, there's no quilt police, so don't be one on this channel. If you didn't see something I didn't do or you got a question, great, fantastic. But don't come in just to complain. Okay? Life's too short. We got enough going on that we don't need to hear that, Don't waste your life complaining about other people, okay? There's no quilt police. Don't be one. And with that in mind, I'll see you next time.